called at that time the trial of the century.
The Patty Hearst kidnapping was a result of the social issues that dominated the 1970s, including the rising counterculture that spoke out against the war in Vietnam and a capitalistic system that protected the rich over the poor. Her trial, which became a sensationalized story, exemplified and projected these social issues into mainstream media and further divided the public over the question of her guilt.
I mean, the President of the United States was getting impeached. Nobody trusted government anymore. There had been the bombings in Cambodia. I mean, it was America, love it or leave it. I mean, it was very, very staunchly divided. I mean, Vietnam vets were coming back and were getting, things getting pelted at them, and they were called murderers and things. I mean, it was a rough time. Kent State, police were shooting at students on a college campus, I mean, it was just a very heady time.
Many of these issues were also present in Berkeley, California, the city from which Patricia Hearst was eventually kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
We felt that the campus rebellion, the counterculture, was essentially the symbol of contempt for the values that had the ability to produce one of the great universities in the world, the University of California. There were other groups. The SLA was the most widely publicized. As we were confident, it reflected only a very thin slice of the total culture, which did not have the substance to survive. It was a ship without a rudder.
The Symbionese Liberation Army grew out of the rising student counterculture in Berkeley, California. It was formed by an African-American escaped convict, Donald DeFreeze, but was made up of mostly white, upper-class college students. They focused on ending racism, monogamy, the existing prison system, and declared a revolution on the capitalist United States government. Most of the members died in a shootout with the California police on May 17, 1974. However, the SLA formally ended when the members, Patty Hearst, Emily Harris, Bill Harris, and Wendy Yoshimura, were arrested in September 1975.
We felt these people regarded themselves as beyond and above moral judgment or principle.
The SLA, which had committed many crimes before, turned to kidnapping and ransom to achieve its goals.
Patricia Hearst was a young socialite and heiress to William Randolph Hearst, an extremely wealthy publisher.
And in Berkeley, California last night, the granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst was abducted by two men and a girl in a bizarre kidnapping. Patricia Campbell Hearst, a 19-year-old student, was taken from her apartment, and her fiancé, Stephen Weed, was beaten and had to be hospitalized.
The FBI and Berkeley police have no real leads in trying to find the kidnappers and their motive.
$70 worth of groceries for each of California's almost 2 million welfare recipients would cost Randolph Hearst or somebody more than $130 million. The Hearsts know now that their daughter is apparently alive and well, but they also know they've got only a week to meet just this first condition before her captors will even start to consider Patty Hearst's safe release.
In the 1970s, more than 10% of the population in California lived in poverty. The SLA's ransom demonstrated the campaign against the country's capitalistic system, a common goal of the militant and politically active portion of the counterculture.
After many more incidents of violence throughout the area, things quietened down.
I turned the food out the truck like we were some kind of animal, you know? Man, that wasn't right. That wasn't cool.
Mom, Dad, I'm okay. I'm with a combat unit that's armed with automatic weapons. These people aren't just a bunch of nuts. They're perfectly willing to die for what they're doing. I just hope that you'll do what they say, Dad, and just do it quickly.
After prolonged time spent with her captors, Patty Hearst began to identify with their ideals. 2 months after her kidnapping, she shocked the nation by announcing her defection to the SLA.
Hello, darkness. Christmas, my old friend.
I have been given the name Tanya after a comrade who fought alongside Che in Bolivia for the people of Bolivia. I embrace the name with the determination to continue fighting with her spirit. I renounce my class privilege, and I would never choose to live the rest of my life surrounded by pigs like the Hearsts. Patria o muerte, venceremos. Death to the fascist insect that preys upon the life of the people.
Paris Hilton is your generation's Patty Hearst. She enjoyed the notoriety. She enjoyed the discomfort, the agony that she caused her family name, the Hearst family.
Would you say that the Patty Hearst case in general was part of a result of this counterculture?
Yes, very definitely.
To defend her actions, Patty Hearst later claimed that she had Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is also known as capture bonding. It occurs when hostages empathize or sympathize with their captors. It comes into play when a captive cannot escape and is isolated or threatened with death, but they are shown tokens of kindness by their captor. It usually only takes about 3 to 4 days to occur. This act precipitated the FBI's active search for Patty Hearst and the SLA.
Everything happened in a frantic 2 hours just before sundown last night. 500 policemen and FBI agents. It was a massive operation. And then shooting began. Police and the FBI had tracked 5 SLA suspects. For almost 2 hours, the gunfire went on. Thousands of rounds were exchanged. Then the house burst into flames, perhaps from a tear gas grenade. The house burned to the ground, and the people inside burned with it. We now know that Patricia Hearst was not one of the victims.
It was shortly after lunchtime in San Francisco today when FBI agents captured Patricia Hearst and 3 other SLA members.
Well, in a nutshell, the whole case was whether she had participated in the bank robbery voluntarily, because her defense was, they made me do it after the kidnapping. F. Lee Bailey was her attorney. His defense was they made her say and do everything that she said and did. Several months after the bank robbery, they went all the way across country. And I argued to the jury, ladies and gentlemen, you know, she had so many chances to escape.
And when you drove across country to Pennsylvania, couldn't you have left a motel room and gone somewhere?
Where?
Stockholm Syndrome, it's not really a good legal defense because you intend to do what you do, and you're responsible for your act.
Slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile, but then if you're so smart, tell me why are you still so afraid?
After serving 22 months in jail, Patty Hearst's sentence was commuted by President Jimmy Carter, but it was still on her record. Then, in 2001, President Bill Clinton pardoned her completely as his last act in office.
Patty Hearst was originally an innocent victim. However, as time went on, she changed her political beliefs, joined the radical SLA, and became a guerrilla rebel and fugitive of the FBI. Although she was captured, tried, and convicted, she was eventually released and fully pardoned. She is now nothing more than a wealthy heiress, but her name remains reminiscent of a more tumultuous time. Her story is one of many examples of the social anxiety that gripped the U.S. in the 1970s and the growing population of politically active college students. Events such as the war in Vietnam, the Watergate scandal, and stories of radical and militant social reformist groups such as this one prompted a massive loss of faith in the U.S. government by its people. Patricia Hearst's legacy affected her family, the community of Berkeley, California, and the nation as a whole.
parents were, you know, they were on, you know, Nixon's, you know, the list that Nixon had, the enemies list. Oh, that's better than Maxim's top 100.